If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Jeff Bowders, welcome to the show.
Josh, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
You're welcome, of course. You are a professor, professional drummer, rock star, husband, deacon at Legacy City Church, all packaged in one. And I had to have you on here because, I don't know, you stepped into the church long ago. I don't know, it's got to be 6-7 years or something. Yeah, right in the beginning, because I remember when you came in, I was like, why is this incredible drummer like stepping in and helping such a young church? And I was like, this doesn't come along until like the 10-year mark or something, like where we've got an established team, and like we have some good, musicianship happening, and you stepped in and just started loving us like from day one. And I was like, this guy's different. And then we spent some time mountain biking and hanging out together, and the stories, and really talking Bible, talking about Jesus. And I'm like, this guy's legit, because I feel like a lot of times in the Christian world, even with musicians, sometimes, I like to call myself a musician, but I'm not always there. But sometimes in the musician world, there just aren't a lot of people who are deep in their theology or really have a deep understanding and love for, I don't know how else to say it without it being a little bit degrading, but I don't mean that. It's just, I think the artist type / creative type oftentimes looks at the pictures and stories of the Bible, loves that more than they love the doctrine and really working through specifics. And I remember one of our first interactions, you're like asking me some deep questions, and I'm like, okay, Jeff's the real deal. And so, yeah, man, I had to have you on the show.
Those are good times. I have great memories of all that. I remember first stepping in to Legacy, and I think it was about a year after you guys started.
Was it year one?
I think it was.
So we started 2014, so that'd be around 2015 or so?
Yeah, I think it was November 2015.
Wow.
It was a radio ad on KKLA.
Crazy.
Local radio here.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I heard it in the morning. I was waking up on a Sunday morning because my alarm clock had, Greg Laurie on KKLA. And there was an ad spot for Legacy on there. It was like, Studio City, come check it out.
Wow. So you were listening to Greg way back then?
Yeah.
So did you like travel with him like through radio like for a long period of time?
Off and on. I wasn't like a daily Greg Laurie listener. I mean, basically he was on like 6:30, I think his program was on.
Yeah.
And that's what time I think my alarm was at that time. And so I would wake up with Greg, and New
beginning. Yeah.
Love the song.
Yes.
Great intro music.
New beginning.
Yeah. All day. All day.
And then I think Phil Wickham recorded the next one.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Upgraded.
This is the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Dave. Can you put some like reverb on my voice and all that when those lyrics come forth?
Yeah, totally.
All the musicians listening are like, Josh, terrible singer.
I'm gonna jump on the kid and support
Yeah.
KKLA, a lot of people have different opinions about it and whatnot, but especially in this town, there are just not a lot of Christian resources. I spent a lot of time living in Nashville, and so it's like that's part of the Bible Belt, and
right.
You're inundated with all the Bible bookstores in every single corner, and LA was definitely not that. So KKLA was kind of a lifeline to a degree, when I first moved back here, and Greg was a part of that, and a bunch of those pastors, and so that's why it's so fitting that I found you and Legacy and the family at Legacy through that station.
Right. Yeah. Through the
thankful.
ministry. No.
Super thankful.
Praise God for radio. Praise God for podcasts. Media like as a way of reaching into people that you would never expect. And again, making that connection. You just listen to the radio and then hearing an ad and then like Studio City. Wow, there's a church over there. I'll go check it out.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. So you are a professional drummer. Like this is what you do for a living. Like this is your full-time gig. And you have a unique setup. And I remember when I discovered it, I thought this was a trip because you're kind of touching all markets, which I think most musicians would dream of being able to do. And by the grace of God, you've been able to do it. From, playing in the Christian world, obviously, playing with big Christian bands, touring with them, playing in the secular world, touring with secular bands. You've done studio work. And then you're also a professor at Music Institute. And so you kind of have this, it's more than a trifecta, it's a quadrifecta. I don't know what you call that, but it's all these angles. And I'm sure there's some other ones you could throw in there, but it's amazing what God has done in giving you all this opportunity from so many different angles. And because most of the time musicians will land in one of those, they'll get in the Christian world and then they'll tour with a Christian band, or they'll be on a worship team, right? Then some will get into a secular band and they'll just be with that band for a long time, or they'll play secular gigs. Some will step into the studio and they become a studio musician and they're just locked in there for a very long time. Some will go the professor route and they'll literally just be a professor and teach music, whether it is at a junior high with, band, or, high school, or get into the college world.
Sure.
And so it's just really interesting that you've been able to crack the code. Again, I say by the grace of God, like in all of these areas, 100%. Right? It's a trip. I mean, I don't know if you realize it yourself, but it's like, praise God, for that opportunity.
1,000%. Yeah, 1,000%. And it really just comes down to being able to recognize maybe the strengths that God's given you, and then saying, well, God, I'm open to what doors you're going to open. You're going to open, and then give me the strength to walk through. As with everything in our lives, I think a lot of times, and I still struggle with this to this day, it's like, I think I have a passion to do this. I have a desire to do this. But that doesn't necessarily mean that lines up with God's purpose and how God wants to use that.
Right.
And, I could sit here and give you countless stories about when I expected God to use me in this particular way, and it didn't work out. And then I'm thinking, well, then it's like the self-identity crisis.
Right.
Well, I don't know who I am anymore because God didn't use me in this specific way that would have been so perfect, and I could see how I could be effective, and, this would be a win-win situation. And, we try to get all analytical about it, but you could be as analytical as you want, but God's still going to do exactly what He wants to do, and the only thing that He requires of us is the obedience.
Amen.
To do whatever He's setting us up to do, and then to follow through with it. And by the grace of God, I have no idea why He has taken me through these different paths and these different opportunities, but so much of it has been a willing desire, but then also a desire that I had to be convinced of eventually, and those things take a little bit longer to to accept, I guess, because your ego is a pretty powerful thing.
Right. Sometimes we get in the way.
Oh yeah.
Or a lot of times we get in the way.
A lot.
And then God has to pick us up by the back of the neck and say, excuse me, you're going over here. Or excuse me, let me allow something to happen to open your eyes to see this is what needs to happen.
Let me help you experience multiple failures so I can get your attention.
Wow.
So I can remind you that I'm in control and you're not.
Wow.
And that's happened more times than I like to admit. And so God's been more than gracious to be able to stick with me.
It's a bummer. It's sad that we don't just learn now. When we want to learn and grow, that we would learn and grow.
Right.
I think we can take baby steps in that direction, but it's amazing how trials, fire, being thrown into the storm kind of seems to be like a fertilizer that causes you to grow very quickly, or wake up very fast. And get back to the Lord, get back in the place that we need to be, or like you said, relinquish control, like literally open our hands and say, okay, like I thought I could control this, and now I got to give it to you. And oftentimes we don't wake up, we don't learn. I mean, in my life, I've seen that many times. Like you said, many failures. I don't learn until I'm in those moments.
Yeah, and I think it's set up that way because that's going to make the biggest impact too. And you have to go through that. You have to go through the fire. And no matter how many times you feel like you've grown, I can look back on multiple experiences where it's like, well, I could see where that difficult time, God used that to awaken this deficiency in my life, or this area that I need to give a little more attention, or I need to relinquish authority to Him. And then that happens. You're like, oh, and then you go through the cycle. Thank you, God, for allowing me to go through the fire, and thank you for refining me. And now I've learned my lesson, and now I'm 100%. I'm good to go. And then something else happened, right? The next trial happens, but it's this weird dichotomy because you felt like you've grown from this difficult time that God's taken you through. And then you feel refined, and then you feel like, okay, I'm good to go. But then all of a sudden, something else, come and you're kind of like, well, wait a sec here. I thought I thought I'm done with that.
Right.
But we're not.
Right.
We're not. That's why, because we're just so susceptible to our own selfish desires, our own sinful desires, right? And I'm always gonna have that as my Achilles heel that God will use. Whether it's going to be,
He will use.
Yes. It's undoubtedly going to happen.
The sermon last Sunday, I titled it, "You Will Fall Because of Me." And Jesus, they're actually Jesus' exact words that He says to all of His disciples, "You will all fall because of me." And of course, that's a reference to Him being scourged and crucified, and they're all going to fall and betray and turn away from Him, deny Him for that moment. But He says it's because of me. But the verse hidden in there is Zechariah chapter 13, verse 7, where it's Jesus quotes it when He's saying it to the boys. He says, "You're all going to fall away because of me." And then He quotes the Father. He quotes the Father in Zechariah saying, "I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter." And so He's saying God is going to strike me, and when He does so, you're all going to run. You will fall because of me. And it's a really interesting thing to start layering and figure out, like, how much we fall because it is a part of the story and plan of God to bring us to our knees, to force us to fall on Him over and over and over again, bring us closer and closer into relationship, grow our faith, deepen our faith in Him. And that's a hard thing to realize. It's a hard, kind of little joy, brothers, when you fall into various trials and issues, knowing that the testing of your faith is going to produce something great in you, perfecting your faith. And so, it's amazing to watch God show up in our falling, show up in our failing, show up in all the things we have to work through in life. But that's actually the mechanism, like you said, that God uses to bring us close to Him.
Yeah. We were designed for growth, right?
Yes.
It's like, I can't think of one of the most amazing gifts that God has given us, but the ability to grow, right? It's like, that's inherent with all of us. All of us have this desire to grow and to be better to just know that we were built to do a little bit more.
We even have that in us.
The fact, and that's inherent. I think if we're all honest with ourselves, I think we all really have that desire because we know that there's untapped potential that we need to utilize. But the hard thing about that is, to be able to grow, you got to go through those difficult times. And initially, that's a difficult thing to hear, but ultimately, like James, we should rejoice in that. We should, because the benefits of that is growth. It's growth, and it's sanctification, and it's glory.
Yes.
And that's why, we could go down the soft theology route of, become a Christian, your life's going to be awesome.
Right.
Believe in God, and all your problems are going to go away.
Right.
And, you have problems in your life. Well, you just need to pray to God.
Right.
And, your life's going to be perfect.
Right.
you saw that, bag of goods.
Totally.
And,
Right.
and it's like, it's kind of difficult. It's brutal for people to accept that on the surface, but we know that the results of that are far outweigh the difficulty that was presented to us in the first place. So
Right. Yeah. No, we have to. He is the author and finisher of our faith.
Yeah. Right.
Praise God. He holds it all in his hands, and he does have a plan to perfect us. And coming to Jesus, more than anything, reveals our faults and reveals our failures. And the church trying to act like everybody doesn't have faults and failures, that we have not all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Yeah, we're all broken, man. We just need Jesus, you know.
Come on.
We all need Jesus the same. And and that's what needs to be reversed, I think, in the church today as a whole. Just if we were all honest and upfront about the fact that we all need Christ the same, I think this would really help.
Yeah.
Because people relate to that, knowing that we're all broken.
Yeah, and a lot of people that might have it's some sort of nervousness to go into a church, or they're scared to participate or to even walk, because they think that, I'm not good enough to go into it. It's like the church doors are going to fall off, or lightning bolt's going to strike if I walk in there. Yeah. It's like, where did that ever come from? Like, when did we start giving people the impression that Christians are awesome? And that's one of the other things too, that a lot of non-believers, and I get pushback on this all the time, oh, Jeff, that's weird that you're a Christian, or, because especially being in the secular industry or the music industry, you get a lot of, Jeff, how are you a Christian, right? Because some of the biggest hypocrites I know are Christians, and, they go down this route, and you're like, well, yeah, we're human and we're broken,
right?
And we're far from perfection, and any honest Christian will be the first one to admit that.
Yes.
And that's why we are Christians, because we need the perfecter.
That's right.
To be able to enable us to get through this life.
Yes.
So, and it's such a weird idea that non-believers just have this idea that, well, Christians have this holier than thou type of attitude. Sure, there might be some, but the majority of authentic Christians that I know that are seeking the Lord and really want to be the strongest Christian for themselves and for their family and for their community, they're the first ones to admit all their failures. They're the most humble people I know. The most humble people.
Yes. Yeah. Did you grow up in the church, or was your family involved in the church? Do you remember, you have memories as a kid in the church?
So what's interesting, we didn't really go to church growing up. My parents put my brother and I through a private Christian school. I think my parents had the foresight that public school may have not been the best educational route at the time. And but my parents are Christians. We just didn't really go to church that much. I remember I have memories of, I think my mom donated to Billy Graham Ministries, and so we would get like the book of the month, Billy Graham book of the month mail club kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah. So those are always showing up on the doorstep.
The little pen.
Oh, totally. Yeah. We're all decked out on Billy Graham swag. And it was, and then, but going to this private Christian school, we had Bible class, we had chapel every single week.
Right.
And that was really the education. Also, we had like Awanas too. I had some friends going to a private Christian school. There's a lot of PKs there, right? So a lot of my friends, their dads were pastors, or they had these churches, and so I would get invited to the different youth group events, and that was super cool. But really, it wasn't until I graduated from high school and I went to like this private, this local community pretend college and a junior college, before I came down here to LA to go to music college. And it was the first, I remember the first class I had was a philosophy 101 class. And I distinctly remember the professor or the teacher coming up, and he said, all right, so here we go. Let's just lay the groundwork. If you believe that there's an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God, you're an idiot.
Wow.
It just came out of the gate.
Are you kidding me?
Just slaying.
Wow.
And I was in this safe Christian community bubble, from kindergarten to 12th grade, where I never got challenged with my faith. I was always like, well, yeah, no, God exists and the Bible's true. And I'm going to go to heaven, and all these kind of basic Christian tenets that you just kind of took for granted. And this guy is basically just challenging me right out of the gate and calling me an idiot for believing everything that I thought I knew was true. And it was awesome. That's exactly what I needed, because I relished in that. I was like, yeah, why do I believe this stuff? I know what I believe, but I don't know why I believe it. And looking back, I can really see how God was using that to prepare me to be able to work in these different communities of non-Christians, of heathens, of people that just
probably seen it all.
Hedonistic, that just they want to live for themselves, and that's it. And so being in that position to really defend and take that apologetic type of route and really kind of say, why do I believe this? What do I believe? Why do I believe it? And how do I articulate that? And how do you do that with generosity? And how do you do that with humility? Because, it's the Bible thumping, over the head approach.
Totally.
I think that's what's turned off so many people, is because that may have been the only experience that they have received in the past, and they just equate that to that's what Christianity is, and that's what evangelism is, and all this stuff. But just the model of Christ was, that's the perfect model for any sort of evangelical apologetic, is building relationship, because it's all about relationships. If you can't build relationship, you can't have influence.
Right.
And if you expect to have influence over anybody without that relationship, well, yeah, it's just not going to happen. And so Christ is the archetype for building healthy, genuine relationships that you can speak value and life, ultimately life, into.
So good.
And so, yeah, looking back at that, at first I was kind of like, what just happened here? I just got my world rocked.
Right.
But it forced me to really get solid in, okay, well, why do I believe this? And that was kind of, I think, the launch pad for God allowing me to go into these different areas of the world.
So rewind back. When did you pick up your first drumstick? Is this, were you young, or was this high school, college?
No, I was 11. I grew up with a steady diet of MTV and radio, rock radio.
Carson Daly and
this is pre-Carson. I'm so old, Josh.
Okay, no, you're not old.
I'm so old.
Come on, we're pretty close.
This is early dial-in. This is Headbangers Ball, late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
I remember that. I remember that.
Ricky Rackman.
Nice.
Just watching Slayer, Anthrax videos.
Okay.
Poison, Motley Crue.
MTV, VH1. This
totally.
is,
Yeah, that was my life.
Music videos all day, every day.
Seriously.
Yeah. No, I remember seeing this as a kid.
I would sprint home, because from school, we lived like half a mile from school. I would sprint home just so I could watch videos.
Yeah.
And so, as an 11-year-old, you're seeing Tommy Lee, spinning around in a cage on stage. What 11-year-old is not going to be like, I want to play drums?
Right.
So, So I saw that, and then at the beginning of 6th grade, they were like, "Hey, who wants to sign up for band?" I was like, "I'm gonna play drums."
Nice.
So yeah.
So your drum line?
No, there's no drum. That's the thing with this private Christian school. It was super small, so we had like 9 people in the band, and 5 of them were drummers.
Okay.
So it wasn't really this like lavish.
Got it.
It just it really didn't. It didn't really give us the best opportunity to experience all that music education had to offer at that point.
Yeah.
But it served its purpose. It was fine. After that first year, though, that's when I said, "Mom, I didn't learn anything. Can I get some private lessons?"
Wow.
And so she gladly, they signed me up for private lessons.
That's cool.
It was June 6th, 1988. It was my first drum lesson.
Oh, wow.
So
you remember your drum teacher?
Jim Tilton.
Wow.
We just went out and visited him in Las Vegas.
No
2 months
way.
ago.
You're still connected.
Absolutely.
So cool.
Absolutely.
Do you remember your kit?
Oh, yeah. It's Yamaha Power 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your sticks?
ProMark 2Bs.
Wow.
Wood tip.
Get out of here, Jeff. You're crazy, man. Your
no.
cymbals?
Zildjian Z's.
Okay.
Z down a beat hi-hat.
Wow. So you had a nice little setup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your
Wait, but you're sponsored by somebody else, aren't you?
Yeah, I shouldn't say that. Yeah. No, I'm a Atomic guy.
Yay.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I don't know if the audience is really even cares. But
Oh, no, they do. Yeah, give the kudos. Give your push. Come on, Jeff.
yeah, by obligation. Here we go. Thank you. This podcast was brought to you by Thomas, Sabian, Evans, and Vader.
Send the gear, my man. We love it. Thank you.
It's so ridiculous. So, yeah.
So, wow. So you had Sweet Kit. Your parents invested in you.
100%. And
Pretty cool.
They did it. I found this out years later because they wanted to give me an outlet because I was a bit of a troubled kid.
Got it.
And so I would get
You're running amok.
kind of running amok, kind of just having fun, maybe too much fun.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to calm that down or maybe refocus those energies into something
awesome.
a little bit more productive.
That's cool.
And yeah, they did. And that was my life from sixth grade to senior year.
Are your parents musicians?
No, nobody. In
Really?
my life. Yeah.
Wow.
Big music fan. My dad's a big music fan.
Okay.
My dad took me to tons of concerts.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Dad was rad. One of my favorite stories, well, one of my wife's favorite stories.
Okay.
So my wife's Korean, and so she grows up Korean society, which is very heavy, heavily focused on education.
Right.
It's taken very seriously.
Right.
There's nothing more serious
Right.
than education. And so, but she loves this story where my dad and I used to go to all these concerts all the time. And I think I was in the 9th grade. My brother was a senior, and my brother was going to go see Robert Plant live. And I didn't have tickets for it yet. And I remember my dad walked into my bedroom, and I'm doing homework, and he goes, "Hey, you know, your brother's going to go see Robert Plant with his friends tonight." I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Huh?" He goes, "Well, you want to go?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing homework." To my dad's reply, "Well, is it important?"
Awesome.
Forget this trash. Let's go watch a show.
Spending thousands of dollars on a private Christian school education. And my dad's like, "Let's blow it off and go see Robert Plant."
Oh, I love it.
So
cool.
So I tell my wife that, and she's just stunned.
Amazing show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Black Crowes opened up.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you remember all this stuff, Jeff. So crazy.
Oh, I know the seats. Yeah.
Oh, I love it though, because it just like, it's amazing how a child is impacted, especially, when you become, I can say, a world-class musician, like the shaping of the heart, the shaping of the mind, like what goes into a child, like my own kids, like my family, I look at the next generation, just how that stuff can impact. And again, the fact that your parents took time, I mean, they're not musicians, but they love music.
Yeah.
And then they bought you a kit and they got you a great teacher.
Yeah.
And then you started to invest in, and you took to it. And did it take over your life, like from that moment on, or were you doing other things, or was it once a week, or like what were the lessons like?
Yeah, lessons were once a week.
Okay.
But I was practicing all the time.
And was he teaching you like any songs you want to know, or did he bring you like right down to like bottom floor, like read notes and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, he was very traditional in the fact that it was like, you got to learn, you can't even play the drum set first. You got to play snare drum for a year and get that, figure out your hand technique, figure out be able to read note values.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, at the time when you're 11, you're like, this
lame.
This is stupid.
Yeah, I know.
I just want to be Tommy Lee here. And I'm not, what is this, practice right here? This isn't, I don't see this on MTV.
Yeah.
But
Right.
ridiculous. But it was perfect though. It was exactly what I needed. And it's like building the foundation of anything. The older you get, you realize that if you don't have the foundation of anything, then it's not going to be it's not going to do what you want it to do ultimately.
When you were talking earlier about growth and sanctification and stuff, I was thinking about the drumming because of the the technique and the pushing through and all that kind of relates, right?
100%.
Because you understand that growth so well, like the way you guys, that conversation you had,
Foundation.
so great.
Yes.
So the drumming is like that too, right?
Dave, that's 1,000%. I mean, that when I talk about growth, that stems directly from growing up and going to a drum lesson one week and being introduced to some concept or something that I have to play and I can barely do it, but then I spend a week practicing that, and then the next week I can come back and do it. And I'm like,
wow.
I didn't really change,
right?
But how can I do it now? But I could barely do it last week. Well, that's that amazing magical thing that happens called growth within us, that we have an understanding, or the synapses in our brain firing to our muscles now are more in line with this particular movement. And you just think, I can't see that. I can't see a change in me, a physiological change, but there's something that definitely occurred, and there's an amount of growth that was required for that to happen for me to be able to play that. And that is applicable in every area of life.
Wow.
We know that,
Yes.
just even with.
It's amazing. Yeah. Cause I don't think people don't know you're you're probably at the highest level, right, Josh? I mean, you could play.
Well, I mean, I'd say at least top 5%. I mean, of course you got your idols, and in the right context of the word, you have these people you've looked up to who are incredible musicians and world class. But Jeff won't say it, but he's really worked hard at perfecting this technique. And dude, I was just watching a video on the way over here. I think it's one of your main videos there on, or one of your latest videos on the double bass. And our double kick.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, dude, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah. Like the down to earth, way. And you do this. I gotta pull it up. We gotta see it.
Okay.
And we'll put it on the screen.
Awesome.
We'll put it on the screen for the listeners here, but you gotta see it. It's so, and to listen here. Yeah. I was just listening to listen to it with me. Insane.
Oh, the captions, yes and no. Yeah, from
I know, but
clean to sloppy.
But I love it because, again, the increase in tempo, the precision, it's calculated all the way through, going from playing right to playing wrong, back to playing right. This kind of stuff, as a wannabe musician, you can't just do this. You don't just arrive at this. You don't even arrive at doing that. You have to be so far on the other side, as Dave was saying. You have to be so far on the other side of musicianship, where you've done it, a lot of it, and you've done all of it, and now you're on the other side of instructor and trying to teach others to become master musicians and laying a foundation. And you're thinking through their mind of what they need to know in a very down-to-earth, practical way so that they can actually get there.
Sure.
And the fact that your brain and your body can understand all of that, say that, and then do it, it tripped me out because, again, one of your famous lines in there is that the double bass is not a style, it's a technique, right?
Yeah.
And you're laying this, and I'm just
Gosh,
stinking Jeff, dude, you genius, man. This is so good, but you're saying it to me in such a down-to-earth, practical way that I can understand what you're saying.
That's good.
I haven't taken enough classes to get there, but I can listen right now and pick up what you're saying. Then you demonstrate this slow tempo, double bass technique, and then you increase tempo. And I can see it going 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140. It's just literally going up in his head, and he's increasing tempo, and then he holds, and then he just holds. And to have that kind of muscle memory just to hold like that, and then to go sloppy, and then to come back, I just it's so hard to do. It's so hard just to demonstrate. It feels so effortless, and you're not doing anything, but it's just coming forth so clean. And that's the magic, that is going back to your teacher, forcing you in the snare, and you're going to learn snare, for this first year before you're ever going to hit a cymbal, here.
Sure.
And laying that foundation is so important.
Well, there's a reason why I didn't get married till I was 46 years old. So let's just
And you did.
Let's just.
And she's beautiful, and you're blessed, Jeff.
Oh,
Worth the wait.
1000%.
And she's a master musician.
Yeah.
We got to talk about that too. Incredible.
Absolutely. And by the way, your wedding, I tell people that I was able to be there to film it, which was so awesome. And it was the most Christ-centered, beautiful wedding
Amen.
I've ever seen.
Yes.
Mission accomplished.
Yes.
Mission.
It was awesome.
Thank you, guys. No, it was an honor to have you there. No, she puts me to shame. She's insane.
I was saying, like, you think I'm a good musician. My wife is better at piano than I am at drums. I'm like, what? I mean, this is crazy, man.
Okay, so I practiced a couple hours a day every day. She practiced 10. Her mom would lock her in the room and bring her food.
Wow.
Total different. This
Incredible.
is total different level.
Incredible.
Total different level.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she's a professor as well.
Yeah.
She teaches as well.
Yeah.
So
That's where we met. We met at the same music college.
All right, now you got to produce some kind of fusion record. Be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. You know how many, so many people have said that.
Wow. That'd be fun.
And I bring it to her and she's like, okay.
She's like, you got to get better.
Totally. Yeah. Once you step your game up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can work on your chops and then maybe we'll get together.
Get to my level.
I can lower my skill for you. She's saying.
That's it.
Yeah.
Honey, can you dumb down your playing a little bit so I can participate?
Oh, I love it.
You know,
So junior high, you pick up the sticks. You got your kit dialed and ready. You got your teacher. He's teaching you for a year. And did you jump immediately into a band, or what's your first, like, let me ask you, what's your first great experience of, like, I get to play the song, like I get to, like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
When your skill comes to life and you're like, I'm enjoying, like, playing a song.
Yeah, that was 1990, the Oregon State Fair with my first band, Bad Influence.
Bad Influence. Oh, I love it.
Taking the world by storm. Bad Influence.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, this is amazing.
How old are you guys?
14. I was the youngest. I think I was like 14 to 17.
Man. Well, 4-piece, 3-piece?
4-piece.
4-piece?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're slaying a bunch of Led Zeppelin,
Nice.
Who, Bon Jovi.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, it was wonderful.
Cover band? Are you guys writing your own stuff?
Yeah, it was all covers. We played
Fun.
the Oregon State Fair, which is the monumental gig for a teenager, you know, and we played at the food court, try not to annoy everyone,
Nice.
and played most of the songs in time.
So you grew up in Oregon?
Yeah.
And what town?
Salem.
Salem.
Yeah.
And so this is the state fair there, and you guys are playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you guys are rock stars.
Yeah, we thought we were.
Do you remember what you were wearing?
Yeah.
Did you have a leather jacket on?
No, the guitar player did, though, and it was like 100 degrees
Of course
out.
he did. Of course he did.
Yeah, of course.
It's 110 degrees out. It's like, I need my black leather jacket.
Totally. Yeah, 'cause I'm not letting this thing go.
love it.
Heavy metal.
Oh, I love it. He's soaking wet in his leather jacket.
Oh, yeah,
He doesn't care
yeah.
as long as he's ripping.
Yeah, just drenched.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I think he had a bandana wrapped tied around the neck of his guitar, even. So it was.
Yes.
Yeah, it was of the time, you know.
So this is the first band. Mm-hmm. And then you played through high school?
Yeah. I didn't really play with that band a whole lot more. I mainly just kind of took lessons and then had guys come over.
They were a
we would
bad
jam.
influence, right?
There it is. There it is.
Dad jokes. Come on, let's go.
Right?
That had to come in, and yeah, it was cool. For the rest of high school, just playing around a bunch of local guys, and then by like my senior year, I kind of decided that this is what I want to do, and I knew there was a music college down here in LA that I was familiar with a bunch of the instructors, and I was big fans of their playing. It's like, man, if I could go down there and study with them.
Is this at
That's what I
MI?
want to do. Yeah, this was MI.
What?
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so
The place that you teach at now, you went to and studied.
yeah,
So cool.
100%. And so before I went down there, because it was like non-accredited, it's more or less at the time, it was like a trade school. You couldn't get a degree from it.
Yeah.
And you can obviously now, but but at the time it was more like a vocational school.
Okay.
And so my parents were like, okay, we'll support you if you go down there, but you have to get some sort of legitimate degree. So I got like an AA. That's what I said. I went to that college, that junior college in town.
Okay.
And which was great because I spent a couple of years there, and college coming from that private school was relatively kind of easy. So I had a bunch of extra time.
Awesome.
That I got to practice. I started working in a local studio, so I started getting my studio chops done.
Wow.
And I was teaching One of my other teachers left for like this other store, and so that opened up a vacancy for the store that he was teaching at, and so I could teach there, and so I was able to start, formulating my own method to be able to help young drummers being able to learn how to play the instrument. And then I just played in a ton of bands and just tried to get as much experience as possible before I moved down here. And I had, I remember I even had this chart on my bedroom wall right across from my drum set. It was called the Bowders wall chart. And it was 3 years out, because I knew it was going to be about 3 years from before I'd go down to school. And I basically had it all scheduled out, like what I wanted to practice, what I wanted to be able to play, what I wanted to be working on for the next 3 years. So that by the time I came down to the school, I could be as prepared as possible.
Wow.
So I could take advantage of it as much as possible and really not regret any of that experience.
There's that first year on the snare drum, isn't it? That's that first year.
That's
I say you casted vision for your own life.
That's amazing.
So
It's true.
So it even goes a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Because on that same wall that I had this Bowders wall chart, I would have, I love quotes and, just things that help me get a better perspective on life and kind of expand my mind. And so I had a bunch of quotes on there, but then I would have like different drummers' names that I was inspired by, or I kind of wanted to compete with, that were relatively around my same age that I knew that lived down here. But there was, I had one, I made this mock flyer of, it says Racer X, which was a local band down here, but this guitar player, it's mainly known for this amazing guitar player named Paul Gilbert. And it said Racer X auditions. Like, are you prepared? Am I prepared? Like, if I go down there and Racer X has an audition, do I have the skill set to be able to go into that situation and play with confidence and authority and really think that I can pull it off? And so that would have been like 1995. So, I go to school, I go to college, I go to MI, I moved to Nashville, and one of the reasons why I moved back, we can talk about this a little bit, but I moved back from Nashville because there was musicians that I wanted to play with here. And one of them was, I wanted to play with these crazy guitar players like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and Paul Gilbert. And after about a year and a half of me being here, I get a call from Paul Gilbert asking me if I would like to record some demos for him and basically audition. Yeah. So it was like 8 years prior to that, nine years prior to that, I have this flyer on my wall in my bedroom. It's basically setting that up. Wow. So it was, so crazy things like that. Like I can't take credit for that. Right. That's God just directing the path, and giving me, planting that seed of desire for some reason, and then following through with it. Yes.
Yeah. Where do you, when you reflect on like your discipline and your desire, like, do you remember when that clicked or like where that comes from? I mean, obviously you just said it, like it's amazing that God put those desires in you. That's very magical and mystical how that happens. Why me? Why do I have this drive mixed with human responsibility, right? This waking up every day and getting after it and putting in the time. Where do you remember when desire met discipline, like when that the lights turned on for you?
One of my earliest memories is Rocky III.
Huh. Yeah.
7 years old.
Great flick.
All-time favorite movie. Yeah. Rocky III. And Clubber Lang. Yeah, I love Clubber Lang, Mr. T's role in that. And, and I also I was equally inspired by both of them. I was equally inspired by the Clubber Lang role in that movie where, he's training super hard. He wants to fight Rocky, who's the champion, and he's living the lavish life, and he's kind of taking the easy fights, and then but then and he's like trying to train, but there's no passion in that whatsoever. And then it flashes over to like Clubber Lang, and he's doing like chin-ups on a rusty pipe in a cellar with rats. And you see like the determination that he's like, no, this is what I want to do. And that first fight, he beats Rocky, and then Rocky comes back. But it's those like training. A lot of people like to rip on those like training montages. Because they're like so cliched. But I was so fired up about that when I was 7, when I would see like Rocky like racing Apollo Creed on the beach,
Yes.
and finally beating Apollo Creed. And it's just like, I have no idea why like that was so motivating for me. And I think it kind of goes back to this whole desire to grow, this desire to meet your full potential, this desire to just to see how you can maximize this life that God's given you. And I was kind of psycho about it even too. I remember when I was like 8 years old, we had these things called JC relays, which was basically just a race at the end of the year that all the schools would compete with. But then for the teachers to be able to find the fastest student, they would take him out on a race, at the end of school. Okay, we're going to test to see who's going to be in our JC relay, what is it? 1x4. And I remember I got it like first year, second year, but third year I didn't get it. And I was like, oh man, what did I do? Right? And so the teacher knew that I was like diehard about doing these races, but I didn't make the top 4. And so she actually made an accommodation. She says, you know what, we're going to do another race on Monday.
Wow.
Right. So that was on Friday.
Wow.
Another race on Monday. And I'm like, okay, I got another chance. So we're just racing for like 200 meters.
Right.
So what does Jeff do on Sunday, the day before the race? Okay, I got my race tomorrow. All right, well, I need to train for this.
Yes.
I'm going to run for 1 hour straight in my backyard.
Yes.
Just run circles in my backyard for an hour straight. And that's what I did.
Wow.
Well, guess what happened the next day? I'm like last play, I'm destroyed. Right.
But legs are torched.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Right.
But it was that like understanding of if I want this, I have to work for it.
Yes.
And if I really want it, I got to work really hard for it. Right. And so that was my mind. I didn't understand the atrophy of muscle atrophy and all this stuff. And so I look back at that and I just go, man, where does that come from?
Right.
I don't know. Because my brother wasn't like psychotic like that. I mean, he had desires in other areas that he excelled in, and it was really, but I think we're all just built a little bit differently, and sometimes it takes, people discover that at different parts in their life, so I don't think that there has to be, you have to know, what you really want to do, or at this super young age, people change all the time.
Right.
It's like there's seasons.
Totally.
I mean, I'm in a new season right now, and I've had to accept that. Right. It's since I got married, that was one of, I've been more than blessed and fortunate to use music and drumming to be able to experience so many amazing places in the world and meet incredible people and to be in environments that I never thought I'd be in, and just being able to tour and see the world. It's just been this unbelievable gift. Well, I'm married.
Yeah.
I'm not going out to Europe for 3 months anymore.
No.
That's not happening. That's off the table, right? That's not an option anymore.
Hey, babe, I'm going on tour for 3 months. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah. So and then that's going to be the casualty of 99% of other musicians' marriages.
Right.
That's just the sad reality.
Right.
We all know relationships require time.
Totally.
And if you expect to have a healthy, fulfilled, equally yoked marriage,
right,
and you're not spending time on that, well, that's not happening.
Right.
It's just that's an impossibility that wasn't created that way. So yeah, we've talked about this before of like finding a new mission. We talked about when soldiers go to war and it's like, and that's all they've wanted to do. Like I listen to a lot of Navy SEAL podcasts, and it's always great to hear their experiences and their mindsets about what actually motivated them to go out there. And it's like, that's what they always wanted to do. They wanted to go out there, and then they went out there, they lived, thankfully, but they came back after the war was over, and it's kind of like, well, now I'm done. Now what do I do now? And a lot of them go into a pretty deep, dark depression because they've already experienced everything that they wanted. And now they're like, well, what do I do? Well, you got to find another mission. Yeah. Right. And
that's good.
And that's what I had to reconcile. And that's what I had to really embrace, actually, and just go, okay, well, I'm not going to be a touring musician, but I can still I can still play locally. But more importantly, I can still teach. And that's one of the things that I've loved so much is that to be able to be in a position that you can add value to somebody else's life to any degree. And the thing is, you don't even know to what degree that's ever going to grow, that could potentially grow into. But the thing is, just to have the honor to do that, to be in a position where you can speak value into somebody's life and to give them something tangible that they can feel better about themselves and to be more proud about something that they can do, to give them that little boost of confidence, that's massive.
Yes.
That's the most rewarding thing that I've ever really experienced.
Do you believe in the 1,000-hour investment? Do you feel like you had done that through your junior high school, college,
the 10,000 hour.
Oh, 10,000.
Yeah, it's a 10,000 hour.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
You don't even,
Come on, don't short us 9,000 hours here.
At 1 hour, 1,000 hour stuff. We did 10,000 hours.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah,
and the idea is to become a master of something, right? 10,000 hours.
Yeah, expert, master. I mean, a lot of these are subjective too, because it's like master into particular styles, because there's so many variables, right?
Got it.
But if you do anything for 10,000 hours, better be pretty dang good at it.
For sure.
Or there's something wrong.
And obviously some are more gifted than others for whatever reason. Some have to put in a little more work than others, for whatever reason. Again, where desire meets discipline, is not easy, but it's the reality.
So I call it the Michael Jordan complex, right? Where obviously Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player of all time,
right?
Not debatable,
right?
Not debatable.
Okay, here we go.
Sorry, LeBron.
Let the comments come in.
I know. Here it is. Here it is. The GOAT. So Jordan obviously has an insane natural ability.
Yeah.
Right. No matter, I could practice 100 million hours.
For sure.
I'm never going to play basketball like Michael Jordan. It's just not going to.
You're not going to dunk from the free throw line. It's top of the key.
Yeah, not
going to happen. Yeah.
Not happening. And guess what? I'm so happy about that.
Right.
I'm so happy about that because
I'm okay with that.
Growing up, that bothered me. It really bothered me a lot to be able to see how other people could grow and get better at things quicker than I could. And when I tell my students that I have no natural ability, they're like, whatever. I'm being 100% honest.
Wow.
Everything I've ever learned on that instrument, or it seems like anything in life, it feels like it just takes me much more time and effort to be able to do it. And I prove it to myself all the time with my students because I'll give them something to work on that took me months to be able to develop, and they come back within weeks.
Wow.
And they're crushing it.
Wow.
And I'm like, there it is. It just proves my point again that we're not all built the same. Right. And like I said, that really bothered me growing up. But the older I got, the more and now I see that it's such a blessing to suck. It's such a blessing for things not to come naturally to you. Because why? Well, you have to work harder for it. What does work offer you? Work offers you value, right? You value things you work for. You don't value things you don't work for.
That's good.
So that intrinsic value that comes from work makes you appreciate what you can do way more.
Wow.
That's why we get I would always get so discouraged and frustrated when we would find out about this person that has this amazing talent, but then they have this insatiable cocaine problem, or they have all these other issues in their life. And, I remember even like being bummed out when Michael Phelps won all those gold medals, and then he came back and like within 3 months he was caught like smoking weed at like some dorm or something like that, some college dorm, and you're just kind of like, oh, what's
Right.
Are you not fulfilled by your amazing achievements at this point that you still feel like you need to fill some sort of hole, which that's spiritually a whole other topic
for sure
that we know about, but just on the surface, right? You would think that he would be content enough, but don't you respect your talent enough to not want to squander that or to stain that
for sure
with these type of actions,
right?
And that was always confusing to me. But the older I got, the more I realized, well, not to take away any of the hard work that Michael Phelps or any of these people like Michael Jordan, obviously they put in the time with their talent to be able to get to the place that they could get to. But because they had a little bit more of a natural edge to it, I think that robs them of that ability to fully appreciate their talent and their ability because it didn't require as much work. And so that's what I try to encourage students with is like, hey, if you feel like this is the hardest thing you've ever done, you're going to be so better off for it. You just have to stay consistent. You got to stay persistent with it. Don't quit. Stay disciplined, and you're going to reap all these extra benefits only because it was harder for you.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing.
And you also get the hidden gift and blessing of, like you said, not only valuing your work, but you get the hidden blessing of work ethic, or you learn the process of working. You learn the process of discipline. You learn, and you basically could step into anything you want to and probably work at it, be disciplined at it, and probably become pretty good at it if you wanted to. Yeah. You're right. I mean, that's a hidden trait that a lot of people just don't even realize is sitting there, is learning how to work consistently in the same direction over a long period of time and get good at something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's character building, right? It's it builds that resistance to taking the comfortable way, right? Which is always gnawing at us. It's always trying to convince us that no, you're doing fine. You know, just be complacent, be thankful with where you are right now. Sure, that's great. We should all be thankful and grateful, but we don't use that as justification to be lazy,
right?
And to compromise the gifts that God has already given us that he expects us to develop.
Right.
You know, I think there's a certain degree of Christian complacency sometimes that we're like, you know what, I'm just resting in the Lord. Okay, that's awesome. We should totally rest in the Lord. But that doesn't give us permission to not be fully what God created us to be. Right. And I try to remind myself myself of that as much as possible, because it's not always easy. And the thing is, you just want to, chill out for a bit and go, okay, life's good. Yeah. We need balance. Of course, I'm not saying you got to go to the grind every single, we live in this like grind culture now. If you're not grinding, you're losing. And I appreciate the message, but the imbalance of it is, it's going to be self-defeating ultimately.
So you studied at MI in LA, and then you found yourself in Nashville.
Right.
And what was the transition there? Why did you move to Nashville simply because a music capital, or you have an opportunity? What happened?
When I was living in Salem, Oregon, when I was going to college, that's when I started to go to church.
Okay.
So, and I started to play at this local church called People's Church, and the youth group pastor is this guy named Brad Duncan. He's a guitar player.
Okay.
And built a relationship with him. Awesome guy. And I remember one day he came into the music store I was teaching in, and he said, "Hey, I'm moving to Nashville." And I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, I want to go try to pursue the music thing." I was like, "Okay, well, man, good luck. Let me know." And about 2 years later, he comes back in. This music store also had a studio. That's where I was doing a lot of studio work. And I see this guy. I'm in the session. I'm in the tracking room. I'm recording, and I see in the control room this like rock star looking dude comes in there. I was like, "Oh, who's this guy?" And I go in, and it's Brad. And I go, "Hey," and he's like, "Man, I didn't even recognize you, right?" Oh. And he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I said, "So how's Nashville?" He's like, "Yeah, great. I just started, I just landed a gig, and I'm actually the MD for this new upcoming female singer named Rebecca St. James." I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And I knew nothing about Christian music because I'm MTV Motley Crue world.
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." And he goes, "Yeah, and we're probably gonna be looking for a new drummer here, like at the end of the year. So if you if you're interested," I was like, "Well, actually, I'm going to MI. I'm going to music college in like 5 months.
Wow.
But let me know, and let's stay in contact." So anyway, there's a lot extra to the story where I went out there and then the gig was promised me. I didn't get it. And this is like a whole story about God's refinement and
the story of many
dealing with
musicians.
disappointment. And absolutely. Where, all these promises are coming your way and it's
Dealing with disappointment.
absolutely. And so, but eventually, I moved out there. When I finished MI, I was like, I'm young enough now. I think I was like 23 at the time. I was like, I'm going to move out there. I don't have any real connections out here or any commitments. So I moved out there. And then I started to play. Eventually I played with her, and that was like kind of the first major, recording artist that I played with and started to tour with. And that's basically where I started my professional career.
Wow.
Was with her. And
How many years?
about 2.5 years.
Wow.
And the great, the weird thing about the music industry, or probably any industry, is that as soon as you get a gig with somebody that is of note, and she was like a Grammy Award winner, so she at the time was like the golden child
Yep.
of the CCM world.
What year is this?
This is 2000 to 2003.
2000, 2003. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you guys come through California?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Did you guys come through Harvest? Do you remember?
I think we did.
I mean, the venue is, so you would have come through Sunday night if you did, and I was probably
Yeah.
sitting in the crowd. That'd be
Probably.
crazy.
Probably. Yeah.
Because that's right around, I'm 18 to 21 at that time.
There you
I'm
go.
fully involved, like with the youth and Sunday nights
What a
and all
trip.
that stuff. Yeah.
What a trip.
If you guys, we tried to get all the biggest shows in town. So I don't know, maybe you guys are too big for us, but I,
think
don't
we may have
yeah.
actually. No, I mean,
So
we
have to check the archives. That'd be fun.
we played some old country churches too. So I mean,
Okay, yeah.
where rafters are just hanging down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so the thing is, when you get a gig like that, it automatically qualifies you.
Got
like
it.
everyone else is like, oh, well, you can play with me now, and
Yeah.
and so it's even though you're 3 months prior to that gig, you're the same drummer. You have the same skill set, you have the same ability, but it just takes somebody to qualify you and validate
Got
your
it.
skills, and that just kind of opened the floodgates to play with a bunch of other CCM artists. But she was the main one that I played with, and it was amazing. It was once again, looking back at that time, it's God using that time to give me a foundation to know how to deal with personalities on the road and deal with being away from home, dealing with travel, and just understanding the grander scheme of what this whole thing really entails and how to handle it with balance and humility and, ultimately, grace. But man, it's hard because when you're traveling in a bus with, 12 other people,
Right.
it's there's what do they say there in the submarine? There's no secrets at sea, right? And so there's a lot of stuff comes up, but the great thing is that her and her family, basically her, for King and Country,
Yeah.
those are her brothers,
Oh, crazy.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
So they were backup singers for us.
No way.
Yeah, they were. Her whole family was on the road
Wow.
with us, and she has like 5 brothers and I think 1 sister. But so they were all on the road. So you had that dynamic, that you kind of had to figure out, and then you also had the crew guys, and everyone just had all these different personalities that they brought to the table. But the great thing is that her dad was also the manager. And he was a great leader in terms of just keeping things Christ-centered.
It's awesome.
And I was so thankful that I had the opportunity to work with her specifically, because the whole purpose of her quote unquote career was mission focused. It wasn't music focused. It was, she's using music as a vehicle
Wow.
to spread the gospel, to encourage people to stay faithful. She had a big purity song that was
Right.
like, I forgot what was it called. Wait for Me, I think
Yes.
is what it was, and so she was just really focused on serving the church.
That's awesome.
And it was awesome.
Impacted
It was,
the next generation.
it totally did.
Yeah.
That's where eventually though, I started to feel the rub, because she said, like I said, she was serving the church, which was great. And obviously, church, bring your non-believing friends to the Christian concert, and we're going to give you an opportunity here, which is awesome, right? But for the most part, like Christian CCM music is the Christian alternative to, Christian entertainment alternative, right? And which is all well and good. That's awesome. But I played in bunch of like secular bands. Before I moved to Nashville, I was entrenched.
What a contrast, huh?
Yeah, and
you were entrenched in.
I was entrenched in the secular music world before I moved to Nashville. It was like that's all I knew. That's all I played. All the musicians I played with, 99% of them were non-believers.
Wow.
And for some reason I was okay with that.
Yeah.
It was fine. And eventually, I remember expressing this to the keyboard player in the band, one of my best friends, David Doss, lives here in Burbank now.
Shout out David. And we were on the road and I was telling him about this and he said, I totally understand. He goes, have you read Roaring Lambs? And I said, what is Roaring Lambs? So he buys me this book and it's a book called Roaring Lambs and it's by Bob Reiner, who is, I don't know if he's passed away or not, but, he was a NBC executive, award-winning producer. Wow.
And a strong Christian guy. And he wrote this book basically calling out Christians for being, if we're supposed to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world, why are we confining ourselves into the safe Christian subculture?
Interesting.
And of just relegating our gifts and talents to only serving the church. So I think he was a little bit more balanced than what I might be portraying right now. But what I took from it at that time was, I do have these desires to not just relegate whatever God's given me to just being in the church or just staying here. It's like, I feel like I can actually make an impact. I feel like God can use me in whatever way to serve people that he's planning on me to serve, planning on me for me to serve ultimately. And I always wanted to go I love teaching. And I remember when we were touring through California, I'd stop by the school, MI, and I would do like a couple little classes there, open counselings. And they said, if you ever move back, we'd love for you to teach.
Wow.
And they just dangled that carrot out there. And so I always had that in the back of my mind. I said, you know what? When I went there, man, that school was Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, it was like the stuff that was going on there was pretty heinous. And faculty, students, I mean, it was bizarre.
Wow.
But God just protected me throughout that whole thing. Just looking back at it, I just think there's so many potential pitfalls. There's so many opportunities just to totally destroy my life. And for some reason, there's just like this hedge that God just kept around me. And I don't know why, but it's amazing. And so I thought, well, man, I'd love to go back to that school and, be an alternative to the darkness that's there. And so that was always kind of pulling at me. And then, like I said, I wanted to I also wanted to play with other musicians that would challenge me musically.
Sure.
That would really force me to step up my game and to, just be the best musician that I can be. And so I just kind of had that pull in, and then I read that book, and it was kind of the writing was on the wall. I just, you know what? I think my time is up here.
Wow.
I think God has allowed me to experience everything I need to experience here. He's taught me all the lessons that I need to learn for this season, for this time. And I think I'm going to move back to LA and start over, basically start over.
How long were you in Nashville for?
A little over 3 years.
Okay. And you played for Rebecca St. James majority of the time?
Yeah.
You played for any other bands during that time?
Yeah. Played for a great piano player a songwriter named Ginny Owens. I played for, Rebecca's band was called Fuse Box. We had our own worship band.
That's cool.
We could talk about that. And then Chris Tomlin.
Oh, crazy.
Chris was awesome.
Wow.
There's a band called.
Where was that at? Was that a venue, or was that a tour, or was that a?
So so this is awesome. This is a great story.
I mean, he's still playing.
Yeah, no,
He
Chris,
just played last weekend at Harvest Crusade. I mean, this is crazy.
he's a machine.
Yeah.
He's a machine. So Chris, I was doing a tour with Rebecca, and this guy I didn't really know of named Chris Tomlin was going to be the support, right?
Oh, I love it.
And so, and I remember
Shout out to Chris.
I remember the first day of the tour. I think we were somewhere in Florida, and like all the crew is loading in all the gear, and so I go backstage where everyone's loading everything in, and I see the opening band. I think it's like the opening band, and I kind of see their crew, and I'm just talking to a couple of the guys, and you know, really, really cool guys, and for like 10, 15 minutes. And then I said, hey, so cool. So you guys play with Chris Tomlin? And the guy named Jesse is the bass player. He goes, yeah, well, I'm Jesse. And I was like, oh, cool. Good to meet you, Jesse. And I was like, and what's your name? And he goes, I'm Chris.
Oh, baby, man.
But
hilarious.
he was so, that just shows how humble
Humility, yes.
that Chris is.
And he's still got it.
He totally. And that I love that guy because we had so many great discussions about the CCM world and worship music. And at that time, I don't know if you remember, everyone was putting out a worship album.
Right.
And all these new worship bands. It was like that was the trend in the CCM world, which was worship music. And like I said, Rebecca, her band, which was including me, we had our own worship band that signed to a label, and we had a really popular song named "Every Move I Make" that went to like #1 on the Christian charts, and it was interesting, and I was going through it. I was like, man, this just feels weird because we would open the show first, and then it would go Chris, and then it'd be Rebecca, and like after we get done playing or after the show, what happens? Well, we got to sell merch.
Right.
So what do? We go out to the merch table, we sign the autograph, sign, you know. And I was like, we're a worship band.
Right.
Are we really a worship band?
Right.
Because what is the purpose of worship?
Right.
The purpose of worship is we're just conduits for people to be focusing on God. This is not about us. This is weird. Like Rebecca, like she's an artist. Like people come, they want to see her, and sure, can they worship? And of course, but if we're going to label this worship music, and then there's going to be life-size cardboard cutouts of us,
right.
You know, it's just like this. There's a disconnect
I get it,
here.
yeah.
There's just this weird disconnect that I'm just not totally sold on. And I remember talking to Chris about this because Chris at the time, that's really when his career started to take off. That was
any of those listening you don't know. He's like, they called him like America's worship leader. Like some still call him that. Like he basically is more worship hits and albums and recordings and I mean you name it, right?
Yeah. He's the golden child of worship. Yeah. In the best way possible.
Totally.
I'm not saying that like in a derogatory way. He's just
God's used him in great ways. I mean, but by the grace of God.
100%.
Yes.
So I remember having this discussion with him because he really started to get popular. I remember on that tour, it was the Not To Us era, right?
We sang that song.
Oh, yeah. Love that song.
Yeah.
And and so I said, Chris, I got some questions for you, you know, because you're the worship guy.
Wow.
Right? Your career is I'm America's worship leader, you know, you know, to some extent. And I said, how does that feel when you go into like a Bible bookstore and, you know, you see this massive Chris Tomlin display and it says by Chris Tomlin's worship album, but yet it's a massive photo of you.
Right.
And like, what happens when people come to your concerts or they come and they see you play? Is that do you think that's a distraction? Because they're kind of like, wait, that's the guy I see at the Bible bookstore. That's the guy I have the poster of. That's that guy. I said, can you square that circle for me? Because I don't fully understand it. And in typical Chris humility, he said, Jeff, I think about that all the time. I pray about that all the time. He goes, I don't understand it. All I know is that God is using me in this capacity. And the only thing that I'm doing is I'm just trying to be as obedient as possible.
Wow. Praise God.
you know? And I was like,
Yeah.
case closed.
Powerful.
And that's so applicable to so many areas of our life where we feel like, God, why do you have me in this position right now? Why did you allow me to do this, to deal with this hardship or deal with this great opportunity? You know, it goes on both ends of the spectrum. It's like, I don't know, am I even qualified to do this? Like, why did you even give me this platform, right? It's like we can question ourselves till we're dead, but until we just relinquish that and go, you know what, God, you've put me here, and the only thing I need your strength to do is to be obedient to what you have for me to do, and reveal that to me. Open my ears, open my heart, open my eyes, so that I can see it clearly, I can understand it, and I can obey to the best way I possibly can. And whatever the outcome is whatever the outcome is, it's going to be. And I need to detach from that completely because it's not under my control. And when Chris expressed, you know, I think that his honest feelings about that, that's why I have no doubt to this day, he is continuing to speak and to serve at such a high level. And God is continuing to use him and this massive platform to just elevate and edify tens, hundreds of thousands of people. Still, that's a long run. That's over 20 years.
Right.
Who else has been able to maintain that level?
That's incredible.
And it goes back to, I can only assume that he's just maintained that same thing that he told me 23 years ago or whatever. You know?
The Lord's still using him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you sneak into that band? I mean, you guys were on tour together, and then you ended up playing sometime.
Yeah. So his drummer actually couldn't make it on some of the gigs.
Crazy.
And so which is awesome, because Chris is like, hey, can you?
Right.
I'm like, dude, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I loved his songs. I was totally unfamiliar with him before that. But
So were you prepping like each week or whatever? You're just like getting out, or you just prep a couple of the songs and then like get in there, or were you just like, I'm just gonna play and I know it's this kind of beat and I'm just going that direction?
Yeah, I mean, I would learn the songs like on the bus, and then we'd go through a couple at sound check. You know, it's kind of like, Jeff, do you want to go through any songs? And I'm like, yeah, let's go through a couple of these. I just want to make sure we're cool, and then it's
how old are you at this time?
24.
24.
24.
Playing for Rebecca St. James.
Yeah.
Getting to play some Chris Tomlin gigs. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
By the grace of God, my gosh.
1000%.
Are there any like super magical moments like in those 3 years that like you just remember, like, I don't know, a night at a church or at some venue or just something like where you just felt like God showed up, or like, is there any specific moments that really stick out to you, like over that touring time, like in the Christian bubble, like really, I mean, obviously, you know, even you sharing that with me of what Chris said to you seemed to like really minister to you deeply, or like it really got to you. Is there any other things that like stick out to you, you know, over those 3 years, you know, in that time?
We went out to Kyrgyzstan, which is like right around Pakistan. It's like northwest of
Kyrgyzstan?
Kazakhstan.
So this isn't Pakistan. Oh, Pakistan.
No, this is Middle East. This is Kyrgyzstan.
Okay.
This is below Kazakhstan,
Wow.
next to Afghanistan,
Okay.
Pakistan. It's around all the stands,
What
right?
in the world?
So there was some missionary group out there that wanted us to come out and to play a couple shows.
Wow.
And highly Muslim demographic.
Yep.
And not super embracing of any sort of, especially Western Christian ideology or thought. And so we all kind of had our reservations about, is this really a good idea? I don't know if we should be doing this or not. But whatever. We took the 30-hour flight out there and landed, and we did our first gig in kind of like a local bar in the middle of town there, and it's kind of a third world country. I mean, not kind of, it is. It's huts, it's mud huts, it's it's not developed by any stretch of the imagination. And so we did that, but then the next night was we're going to play at this what they would have is a soccer stadium, kind of like the size of like maybe the Coliseum, the LA Coliseum.
Okay.
Not the big one.
Right.
The one next to USC down there. And so, okay, wow, we're going to play. And Rebecca, God bless her, I don't think fully understood the potential fallout or the potential resistance that she would be receiving. So, I mean, God bless her because
she's a woman? Because she's
she's a woman,
Western?
and one, she's Christian.
And she's Christian?
And she's going to be...
Interesting.
And there's a woman preaching basically from the stage.
Right.
And
what about the rock band as well? Like, is that foreign? Was that foreign at that time, or?
I don't think so.
Huh.
I think they were aware of that, or they've had some sort of experience with it, so that wasn't so jolting.
Right.
But I think the female giving a Western Christian message,
interesting,
is could have been pretty volatile.
Wow.
And well, eventually it was. So.
Wow.
So, but the great thing about her is like she didn't like water it down at all. Like she gave her thing and was like.
So this is this is in this venue?
Yeah. So this is thousands of people.
Like, how many thousand do you think standing there? A few thousand people?
Oh yeah, probably 4 or 5.
Oh my gosh!
Right. So yeah, tons of people, and she's up there saying, God has a plan for your life.
Wow.
God wants a relationship with you.
Wow. Is there a translator or something, or is this okay?
Yeah, totally. And I think she even gave like maybe her purity speech as well.
Wow.
Which is,
You're on the drums.
Oh yeah, this is.
You got your sticks in your hand.
I'm getting ready to go to battle. I'm waiting for just the bleachers to empty out and just rush the stage. But luckily it didn't. They were shockingly receptive.
Wow.
Which was amazing.
You hear a pen drop in there?
Yeah, super quiet.
Yeah.
But the missionaries that we were working with there, actually, they said they're going to be more receptive than you think because we understand that you have concerns about it, of course. And they were right. They were much more receptive. However, after the event, after we finally got done, there was kind of like a mini riot, and they took down our entire. We had displays to hand out Bibles and everything, and they just totally smashed it. They stole it. They took everything, and they took one of the bins that had our plane tickets back.
What?
So
no,
we're like, okay, so now we're stuck in Kyrgyzstan.
Oh my gosh!
And so we had to go to the embassy, spend a bunch of time there, try to figure out how do we even fly out of here. And,
unreal.
And they weren't the most accommodating, and. I mean, I only share this story because it reminds me that, you can even be like in a super hostile territory and still bad things are going to happen to you.
Right.
And nothing really, it could have been so much worse.
Sure.
It could have been so much worse, but God had a specific plan for us to go out there. I have no idea what seeds were planted out there from that.
Right.
Who knows?
Right. You'll meet him in heaven.
Exactly. That's just it. And I anticipate that.
Wow.
Because I just want to know, what was the purpose of that?
Wow.
'Cause that was just one terrible headache.
Right.
And, but yeah, it's little things like that I kind of get excited about when I think about eternity and go, man, I wonder what the purpose of that was. I wonder if that did have any sort of influence and what seed, what developed from that seed that was planted there.
So you did so you were with Rebecca for about 3 years or 2.5 years, and in Nashville for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then you felt the pull to step back into the world and start pursuing music. And you knew you could go back to MI if you wanted to, or step in there and that opportunity there. And so you moved back to LA. You're 27 or you're
26.
26?
Just about to turn 27.
Okay. And did you jump right back into teaching, or you go into the studio, or you get on board with a band?
Yeah. So basically, I moved back here and I started over. I moved back in with my old roommates that I went to.
You've had all this success in Nashville as a drummer, right? And you have street cred, is that right? In Nashville, in the Christian world, and you're like, let's start over in LA.
Yeah. Yeah. Josh, I remember specifically where bus call in Nashville, it's always at midnight. And so I'd always go over to my bass player's house and park my car there, and we would drive to the bus together. And so I remember going over there on one of these nights and sitting on his couch. And I remember thinking, man, I have a really good gig, making pretty good money. I live in a pretty nice place, got a good group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
My life is pretty awesome.
Right.
My life is pretty comfortable right now. And it scared the heck out of me.
Wow.
It frightened me.
Wow.
It really shook me.
Wow.
Because I knew I could stay here and continue to do this for the next 10 years, 10, 15 years. And I would always wonder what would have happened if I pursued these other desires that I had.
Wow.
These other ambitions to really test myself to see what my full potential is. Because as much as I love that music, it's great. It's pop music.
Sure.
It's fine. But as you showed, I like playing, the things that are a little bit more technically challenging.
Sure.
And I enjoy that music. I enjoy I just enjoy that challenge. I that's fulfilling to me. And the music that I was playing in Nashville didn't offer that to that degree. And I just knew that I'm not going to be, I don't want to be part of the woulda, shoulda, coulda club.
Sure.
Right. Of always like, oh man, wonder what if, type of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I said, you know what? I think I need to leave and I need to go back out there.
Wow.
So I did. And I bailed on it. I moved back out here. I moved in with my old roommates from school. I remember the first night I was here, they lived in like a 1-bedroom apartment, and the living room had a divider in it, like an IKEA divider with a mattress on the other side.
What town were you in?
Hollywood.
This
is the middle of Hollywood.
Oh man.
2 blocks away from Guitar Center.
Crazy.
And just the stench. And
still there.
Still there.
Right now.
Yeah.
And I remember pulling in and they're like, Jeff, yeah, you can crash on, here for as long as you want or whatever. And here you can sit on this mat or, sleep on the mattress. And so I remember lying on the mattress in their living room with this divider, this IKEA divider. And then they brought all these other friends over, and they're just smoking a ton of weed, and just like billows of pot smoke are just coming over the divider. And I'm lying there and I'm thinking, I've never had a panic attack in my life.
Wow.
But just this overwhelming anxiety came over. And I just went, did I just make the biggest mistake of my life?
Wow.
What did I just do?
Right.
I just threw away comfort. I threw away stability. I threw away, I threw away all. What am I doing here? And I got to deal with this.
Wow.
It's like, oh yeah, it was brutal. But yeah, God slowly started to open doors and create a path for me to get out of that.
What was the first step? Were you in the studio? Were you back teaching? Did you step in with a band?
Teaching.
Okay, teaching.
Yeah, so I was back teaching.
Okay.
And didn't have a ton of hours because I'm the new guy.
Sure.
It's totally understandable.
You're 26 years old teaching MI.
26-year-old. Yeah.
Trip.
And it was great. So really dug into that. And which was really cool. So when I got in there, my old teacher, who was the head of the drum department, he was like, I can't give you a lot of hours, but one thing I can give you is at the end of the quarter, students can sign up for you for private lessons. And he goes, and I don't allocate these to, or I don't try to disperse these equally, right? It's not an equitable thing to all the teachers. He's like, whoever the students choose, I'm going to put them on your schedule.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. He said, so, if you want to get some students, try to get private students, or you want to get more hours here, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. Cause I just had one class and then like one private. But at the end of the quarter, students are signing up for the next semester, next quarter. And my boss comes up to me and he said, hey, Jeff, I got to talk to you. I said, what's that? And he said, so I got the request in for next quarter's private lessons. And he goes, you got 30 requests.
Whoa.
And I went, that's awesome.
Crazy.
Oh man. praise the Lord, because I need money.
Right.
Hollywood is not cheap to live in.
Right.
And I was like, this is fantastic. And he goes, but I'm not going to give you all those hours. And I said, what's going on? I thought you told me at the beginning when I came in here, that's what the deal was. It was like, if they sign up, then I can get those. He goes, I know I said that. He goes, but I know you moved back out here just not to teach. If I give you all these hours, you're going to be locked in here and you're going to be dependent on this school.
Wow.
I don't want you dependent on this school because I know you want to play. Right. And at the time, I'm thinking, you're ripping me off.
Right.
I need
cash.
I need the cash. Let's talk practicality here, bud. But that was the biggest blessing ever, because he totally set me up to understand the balance between professional playing career and a professional teaching career. And I'm super thankful. He actually came to the wedding. So I don't know if he's on, but Tim Pedersen, great guy, really helped.
And then what was your first step back into the band world?
So I was taking Craigslist ads.
Wow.
We had
trying out for people.
Yeah. There's this guy, there's a local guy named Barry Squire.
Okay.
Who everyone knows in the industry. He's kind of the connector guy, where if any band or artist is looking to put a band together or they need a musician, they basically call him and he sets up the auditions. And he's got a whole Rolodex of just tons of musicians, and then he kind of cherry picks who he thinks would be suitable for that artist or band. And so luckily I got introduced to him, and then he started to send me out on auditions. And and it was a lot of it was really pop at the time, because this is 2003. Yeah, 2003. And he and so it was a lot of it was kind of the pop stuff, but I wanted to play kind of the more technical, progressive type of music, because I just did all the pop stuff in Nashville, and it's like that's not why I moved back out here. Right. And so I kept putting that out there, everyone, I'm like, I want to play with these type of guys. Yeah. And about a year after, it was like 2004, I remember I was teaching at school, and I got this call from a number I don't recognize, and okay, whatever, it goes to voicemail. And then after the lesson, I picked it up and, hi, Jeff, I got your name from so-and-so and so-and-so from a couple different people, and my name's Paul Gilbert. I'm a guitar player.
Crazy.
And I'm just like, what? How did this just happen? Wow. And so I called him up right away, and I said, hey, Paul, this is Jeff. I just got it. Oh, great. Well, thank you for calling me back.
Unreal, man.
He's like, yeah, I need to record, some demos. I was wondering if you might be available. And I'm like, absolutely. When and where? And that night went down there and recorded a bunch of tunes for him. And then about 8 months later, he asked me to go on the road with him for about a month over to Korea and Japan and China and all of Southeast Asia. And,
unreal.
And that started a pretty awesome run with him for like the next probably 6-7 years, doing tons of albums, a bunch of world tours all over. And and then, but once again, it's that kind of thing where, you play for Paul Gilbert. Oh, so you can play. Oh, so then now I'm getting requests to play on other people's records and to fill in for other drummers that, can't, fulfill their gig at the time. And then, so instantly you get that kind of qualification. But also this town too is, people really like to box you in terms of like stylistic. So it's like, Jeff's like the instrumental, progressive, technical shredder that can't play a pop gig. Right. Well, the first part of my whole career was pop music. That's all I ever did. Right. But I understand it too, because there's just so many amazing musicians here in this town. There's so many incredible drummers, and it's easy to kind of get lost in the sea of them. So it's a lot easier to compartmentalize who they are by, who they associate with or what gigs they've had, or, to give them that identity to, just to keep track of them, at least I think it's more.
What are some of the biggest gigs you've done here in LA?
With artists,
big artists, big artists, big gigs.
I probably when I first moved back here, I did this little gig with David Lee Roth where I was playing percussion, which was pretty hilarious.
Wow.
Which was pretty fun. My buddy Ray Luzier, who's a great drummer, he plays drums in Korn.
Wow.
Now. And but he was with David Lee Roth for a long time. He called me down and said, "Hey man, can you come down and do this?" And so we played with David Lee Roth for this VH1 special.
No way.
For a couple days.
Wow.
And so that was pretty fun. Probably the biggest artists, worldwide artists I've played with. I played with Shakira for like a couple award shows. I think it was like the iHeart Music Award. I think Billboard or something.
Was that local? Was that here in LA?
Yeah. That was. What is that venue? What is that big theater? It's the USC. Dave, do you know that? What the US?
The Shrine?
The Shrine. Yeah, it was the Shrine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy, Jeff. Was that a trip moment? I mean, you're sitting there in the kit and you're just like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's a trip to, well, first of all, you're like waiting side stage and like P. Diddy walks by you, right? You're like, it's P. Diddy, Doug, right? And then you
throw him a peace sign? What do you do?
Hey, what up, Did?
It's so good.
It's amazing. And then, even on stage, because especially those award shows, all the artists are there. And so the audience is primarily, at least the front row audience, are primarily all the artists. So you see, from Blake Shelton to Ariana Grande to, just they're just all there.
Everybody's there.
Yeah. It's just a scene.
Did she have multiple percussion, or was it just you?
Yeah, just drums.
Wow.
Cool.
Pretty technical, right?
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, kind of. She's definitely more pop.
Okay.
So they like to bring in her Colombian, percussive influences.
Right.
But all that's to track anyway.
Right.
Sorry.
Whoops.
So,
little inside scoop, little sneak peek behind the scenes.
all of the music you hear on stage is not played by musicians.
Got it. Yay. They're lip singing with their instruments.
Exactly.
Interesting. Fun.
Yeah, there's some secret singers and
That's crazy, man. I mean, again, going from weed coming over your divider in your room, in LA, Hollywood.
Yeah.
To all of a sudden you're sitting on an award stage, in LA, basically the pinnacle of musicianship. I mean, when it comes to A-list, type stuff, what people would love the opportunity to do, to sit on stage and say that they've had that accomplishment. And of course, like you said, once you start getting these gigs locked in, then all of a sudden this is the stamp of approval, and then before you know it, the more opportunities show up and you find yourself in more circles.
Totally. Yeah.
Rewinding back, I guess, like you've, you list all these. I read your bio again, Jeff, and just like all these artists and all these top level musicians you've been able to play with in bands and even TV, doing The Voice, and you're doing all these shows. When you reflect back on even some of the foundations that you've laid, and I'm thinking through even like musicians who are listening now. How did you? I mean, it's a big question, but how did you navigate, these waters and maintain a relationship with Christ? I'm sure there were some negative or maybe some dark seasons, but also some very bright ones. And then somehow Christ kept you like through it all, and somehow, you know what I'm asking? How? How? Because there's a lot of kids dealing with this now, trying to figure out how, right? They want to get in the world, man. They want to get in the nitty gritty. They want to get into LA, and they want to get in the studio, and they want to play with these big bands, and they want to tour the world. But a lot of them lose their faith, or they completely walk away from the Lord. Some don't ever come back. How?
Yeah, that's $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
A couple days ago, I was actually driving down. This is Magnolia, right? I was driving down Magnolia.
Yeah.
And I don't know why this thought came into my mind, but I thought, I've never told anybody that I'm a drummer. I'm like, yeah, hey, I'm a drummer. Like, that's my identity. Like, I've never, and actually just saying that weirds me out. This thing of like, yeah, I identify as a drummer. Like, there's like friction, there's distortion internally when I say that. Yeah, I'm a drummer. I don't look at that at all. My identity is not a drummer. I think that's so limiting. Do I play drums? Sure. Do I get listed as a drummer? So, of course, right. Do a lot of people know me as a drummer? Yeah, of course. I'm not mad about that at all. That's awesome. But me personally, I've never embraced this idea that, hi, I'm Jeff Bowders. I'm a drummer. And I think there's something, I need to think more about it, but there's something nagging at me about that I think is, it's like a little thread that I need to pull, because I think what it is that for some reason, God has impacted me in a way that I don't identify as something I do, but something I am. And my identity ultimately is in Christ.
Amen.
Right?
Yes.
So for me to downgrade that eternally to say, I'm a drummer, I'm a musician.
Right.
I think I can very easily squash what I feel entitled to. And it becomes a lot easier to see the grander picture for when things don't turn out the way I want them to turn out. Because I think, especially in the music industry, when you don't get a gig, when you go to audition, you're like, oh man, I really want to get this gig, and you don't get it. If you don't have an identity outside of your musician self, you just got rejected personally. And that's where the problem is.
I see.
That's where people are like, wait, I went to this audition. I thought I played great, but they don't want me. That means they don't want me as a person.
They don't like me.
Because my identity is wrapped up in what I do.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? And that's super dangerous because it's very vulnerable and it's subjective to whatever anybody else deems it to be. When your identity is in Christ, no one can tarnish that. No one can rob that from you. No one can diminish that. That's who you are eternally. So no matter what happens to you, no matter what people say to you, no matter how much you're accepted, no matter how much you're denied, it doesn't matter, because ultimately your identity is in Christ and you're good to go. You're good to go.
Yeah, so
no
good.
factor.
Right.
Right. And I think that's, to answer your question, that's the root of it. You know, and obviously, have I made mistakes? 1,000.
Right.
Have I done things I regretted? Absolutely.
Right.
Have I gone through seasons that I don't want to talk about? 100%.
Right.
Absolutely. But Christ is eternal.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And he's full of grace. And he's full of forgiveness. You know? And
in those seasons, it seemed like, if I'm interpreting it correctly, it's like all these years over the decades, it's like you go into those valleys, you go into those dark places, but then you somehow remember who you are again, or you're reminded of who you are.
Yeah.
I know who I am. And it is the Holy Spirit that keeps us. It's the Holy Spirit that shows up. I think it's that still small voice in those moments that says, you know, this is who you are. You know who you are. You know, remember who you are. And he is the constant, like you just said. He is eternal. He doesn't change. You know, he keeps showing up. He is the steadfast, you know, continual love in our life. And it's in those valleys, in those moments when many fall away or run away from the Lord and don't end up coming back for whatever reason. I think it's such an important word, is that before taking any risk in life, or before stepping out into the world or stepping into opportunities, whatever it may be, taking risks for opportunity, it's like, I'm going to go do this. It is so important that that foundation is laid to know who you are in Christ, to know who I am, a child of God. I am a son of the King, and I am a son of Him everywhere I go in the whole world, no matter what opportunity, no matter what kings I stand before. I belong to Him. And because power and influence and money and opportunity, wants to steal that identity away from you very quickly. And yes, when this king denies you, and says you're not good enough or you're not the guy or whatever, to fall back on the fact that he gives me all affirmation I need. I have all that I need in Him. We can find that contentment, find that peace, and continue to push forward. It's incredible to think on your story, Jeff. And again, you lock away a lot, and it's taken years. I chip away, asking the questions here and there over the years, just like, who is Jeff Bowders and where has he been and what has he done? And it's like I get these little snips, from time to time, but I just love it. Because you're very slow to boast about all your achievements. You're very slow to boast about all that you've done. And I noticed that a long time ago. I'm just like, I watch your drumming. I'm standing right there, right on stage, and I'm watching you just like do stuff that, if I could have 10% of your musicianship, and just like in part, let's do some matrix download here. I just want a little tap, and I love it. I love watching it. I love feeling it. But you've locked away a lot of that. And again, to see this journey, and to see that all that God has done, and that He's kept you, really, that He's kept you, and that you've stayed in the faith, and that again, I watch you show up to Legacy, man, this small church in Studio City, and just love and serve us so well with such high level, master craftsmanship. Like, it's just like, God, what happens to a guy to get him to do that? Like, what does he have to go through and experience, and how deep does his relationship have to be with you in order for him to do something like that for the church? And I recognize that. I can see it. I'm interested, like, when did the lights turn on for you? When did that identity moment wake up for you? Was it as a child, or was it high school, or was it college? When did the lights turn on and you knew, that you belonged to Him? Or like, was there a defining moment? Was it a process? Was there a segment of life?
Yeah, I've thought about that so many times. I don't have a memory of not feeling like there is a God who created me. Wow. One of my earliest memories is I had to be like 4 or 5 years old. I mean, my wife always my whole family makes fun of me because my memory of 20, 30, 40 years ago are still very vivid in my mind. I have no idea why. I don't know what I had for breakfast, but I still have these memories. But I'm like 4 or 5 years old. I remember just sitting in our front yard, gazing out into the horizon, just looking at the clouds, and just accepting the fact that, wow, God, and whatever I thought God was at that time, I just knew that it just wasn't me. My life wasn't just me. There was something else, and I don't know where that comes from. And I don't know why God chose to reveal that to me or give me that understanding.
Wow.
Because I just never really fully questioned it until, like I said, when I went to college, and then it was like, well, why do you, and now there was an intellectual issue at that point, which was great. I need that intellectual challenge because I'm kind of an analytical guy. And so, that all that is just more reinforcement for me to understand my identity in Christ. But in terms of like having a come to Jesus moment, I never had that.
Wow.
Never had that.
It always been there. It's as far as you can remember. It's just always been there. That's amazing.
I don't remember me feeling alone or feeling like there's no God.
Wow.
I just don't have that memory.
That's awesome.
And I have ridiculously young memories.
Yeah.
And like I said, we didn't really go to church a ton either. So it wasn't like some Sunday school thing that I just was introduced to. I don't remember.
Oh, it's really amazing. that God has just been there, and that he, it sounds almost like a Jeremiah, or like this, I knew you and called you, before
Right.
you were even, born, like this, this relationship, or a Samuel, I think it's Samuel who, as a child, like hears the voice of God,
Right.
and just has this relationship with him and chooses to walk in it. And it's beautiful because it's, I was talking with my brother and just 2 podcasts ago, and I remember saying to him, which was like a realization for me and Jess at the same time, it was just like, we never remember going to church and a relationship with God being like a new discovery. We just remember it had always been.
Interesting.
That, like, I have a couple, I probably have like 3 moments like where the lights turned on for me, like on a deeper level, and I was deepening my relationship with God. But as far as I can remember when we were young, it's like church was not like, hey, get up, we're going to church. It was just a part of our life. And I never saw my dad make a commitment or covenant with God. It was what we saw. It's what we knew. It's all we knew. So we automatically knew there was a God, automatically knew we were to worship Jesus, automatically knew that this was the way. No one sat down and explained to us the relationship with God. It's just something that we always knew was there. And it's really interesting when you point that out. It's like that there wasn't necessarily a defining moment, but this almost like this process from early, even your parents not like sending you to church, but like growing up in a private Christian school and just like growing in the knowledge and understanding of God. And then this appetite develops in college, and like you're wanting to, in your philosophy class, like start to challenge and understand who this God is even more. And you start reading, going after it. No, it's incredible to watch what God has done. And Jeff, that anchor, that process would anchor you all the way into life, like even till today. Like, I mean, it's really amazing to reflect back on and see. Because again, I see musicians get jaded. I see them, step into the church, step out of the church. I see them get into the world, and I watch them even today. There's all kinds of musicians in my mind that are bouncing around LA, bouncing around the Christian world, and just can't seem to get their like footing in Christ. Any advice for them, or any encouragement for them? Like maybe they're wavering or wandering, trying to figure out like any encouragement for them, like where they should be or what they should do.
Yeah, well, it's obviously we know you have to have time with the Lord,
Yes.
right? That has to be a daily diet. Without that, going back to the relationship with your wife, to have a successful marriage, what does that mean? You have to put in time.
Yes.
You have to put in time and foster that relationship. Well, Christ is no different. But community is massive, especially here in this town, because this is just, as we know, Satan's playground out
Right.
here. And there's just so many pitfalls and so many temptations, and just every opportunity, every opportunity is available, and 99% of those opportunities are self-destructive. So if you're not around solid people that are going to hold you accountable. And okay, so I only say accountable because that I kind of have a different philosophy on accountability.
Yeah.
That I think sometimes the church defines it as. But to be with a community that understands you and is gracious to you and where you are, and wants to be support to you when you need it, not when they feel like you need it.
Oh, wow. That's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's what real relationships are.
Yes.
That's what authentic, I think that's what authentic relationships are, is when it's not forced. That's where that sometimes a Christian accountability.
Right.
So interesting story. So when I moved back here, I was living with my older roommates.
Yeah.
And lived with them for probably about a year, 6 months, maybe closer to a year. And Rebecca St. James, she calls me, and she's like, after I've been here for about 3 months or so, and she calls and she says, "Hey Jeff, how's it going? I just want to check in, see how you're doing, everything." It's cool. Yeah, everything's great. She goes, so have you found a church yet? I said, yeah, I finally found a church I've been going to for a couple weeks now, and it's going pretty good. I've been checking out a bunch of different churches. Churches are a little bit different out here than they are in Nashville. There are not so many options. And so I've been telling her about it, and then she goes, oh, that's great. So you and your roommates all go to church?
Right.
And I go, oh yeah, it's, Rebecca. Maybe, hopefully, I can convince them, but no, they're not Christians. And she just she gasped,
right.
Jeff, where's the accountability?
Right.
Like, how can you handle this?
Right.
I said, actually, what's interesting, Rebecca, is that my roommates hold me way more accountable than any other Christian brother I had back in Nashville.
Right.
And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, the thing is with my Christian brothers is they understand this thing called grace.
Right.
And we even have a nice little term when we're in a season that we're not doing so well and we've kind of stepped away. Yeah. We call that backsliding. So it's a very nice way of just saying, Jeff's kind of struggling right now. Right. It's okay.
Right.
We're going to give him some grace.
Right.
Because we know he's going through a tough time. People that aren't of the church and are not Christians, they do not understand grace. If you say you believe something and then you walk a different way, that word is called hypocrite. Right. And that's where the hypocristian term comes into play.
Right.
I said, so if I say I'm going to church and I believe this, but then I'm going out and partying with them in the same way, how are they going to even respect anything I say?
Mm-hmm.
I said, so in a weird kind of way, they actually hold me to the fire way more because I don't want to pull Christ's name through the mud when I say I'm a Christian and then I'm acting in a way that is no different at all from their life. Because why should they even change? What is different about my life what's better in my life that they don't have?
Right.
Absolutely nothing. So to go back to your question about just how do you stay strong living in this town, being in an industry that is full of wickedness? Well, you have to surround yourself with righteousness much as you can.
Yeah. Your story brought back a memory. I remember in high school, there was a season where I was discovering God. I felt I really deepened my relationship with God right around 16, 17 years old in there. But through my sophomore year, I basically was just running amok and I was ditching school and I have over 100 absences, I'm in one of my classes because we would, it's my French class. And
Scholar student.
Yeah. And we would ditch and we would go and smoke weed. And I basically smoked weed for about 8 to 10 months or something like this, just that year. And anyways, I discovered through that process that I didn't like losing control. And I was just doing it because I wanted to hang out with my buddies and be cool or whatever. Because it never hit me right. I don't know why. I don't know if it was just trash, or if it just, it was good stuff, but I just didn't I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I put it all away. I looked at these guys and I said, I was never going to do this. I always knew I was never going to do this. And here I am doing it. Well, fast forward, I got saved. I feel truly saved, even though I'd known God. Really started walking with him, trying to live an example in my high school, right? And for the last 2 years of my high school, I was very radical, getting after it. Well, and carrying my Bible around and just talking to people about Jesus and having conversation with teachers and all this stuff. Well, there's one guy who used to banter with me all the time and give me a hard time, calling me the Christian and all that stuff. And I used to hang out with this crew of guys. They were anyways, I used to hang out with this crew of guys. And anyways, one time he somehow lured me away through all this mocking and all this stuff. And I don't know why I took the bait, maybe trying to be cool or trying to hang out. But he's like, would you smoke a cigarette? And I'm like, yeah, a cigarette, no big deal, whatever. Just smoke a cigarette from time to time, no big deal. And is because I don't remember, maybe I was drinking from time to time here and there as well. And he's like, well, how about a cigarette with some weed in it? You know, it's like, it's basically the same thing, right? It's just some tobacco with some weed in it and this and that. And I hadn't smoked weed in a long time, you know, and he's like, yeah, sure, yeah, why not? You know, whatever, we're at a park somewhere. And he lights this thing up. Jeff and I start smoking. As soon as I take a hit of this thing, he goes, you Christian, I got you to smoke the weed. I got the Christian to smoke the weed. And he starts mocking me and laughing at me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my non-believing friend, like literally like roped me in, trapped me just so he could condemn me. Just so because he knew I wasn't going to live in that lifestyle. But he just wanted to basically trash me, you know, call me the hypocrite, call me the fake.
Sure.
And I'll never forget that, you know, but I was just, he lured me in. Like,
little flank.
Yeah, it was hilarious, like when I reflect back on it. But it is interesting how the world can be sometimes a great accountability in the life of a Christian just by having these non-believers around who are ready to call you out at the 100%. Drop of the pen. I mean, they're ready and willing to.
Especially now.
Yeah.
I mean, society now. I mean, wow.
Like people don't hesitate.
Right.
Yeah.
They look for it.
Yeah. In our culture. I mean, it's the crazy times we're living in. You have built something called Drum Discipline. And these are really comprehensive, systematic videos on a master class really on how to become a master drummer. And it was cool because I got to see you kind of have conversations with you when you were putting it together and getting it all recorded and working through a lot of that process. I know there's probably a lot of even young musicians listening, trying to figure out how to navigate, where to start, what that looks like, the process of discipline and how to get into that. I'd love to hear your take, maybe some quick tips like on, you know, for the musician, how do you become a good musician? You know, what's important? You know, what are the things that stick out?
First thing, you have to have an awesome wardrobe. You got to have the clothes.
Nice.
Check.
That's it. That leather jacket. That's what it's all about. You have to find a teacher.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. I mean, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel and waste time. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. There's tons of great information online. Obviously, that's what I've done online. I've created Drum Discipline Academy for that sole purpose.
What is this in a nutshell? What is Drum Discipline?
Drum Discipline Academy. It's there's courses. So I have just a few different courses that you can do independently, but then the biggest course that I just launched is specifically a double bass course, but it helps every aspect of your playing, and that's actually much more. It's a master class where we meet together 2 times a week online, so it's much more interactive. So it's not just like an independent study.
Got it.
It's course library, the materials, like all pre-recorded videos that you go through at your own pace, but it's a
so you show up in real time digitally.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're Zoom calls. Just did one yesterday, and
that's awesome.
So, and it's awesome. It's my favorite. It's so, talk about the new mission.
Yeah.
That's the new mission, and it's so fulfilling, and I'm so blessed to be able to do it. So yeah, but the thing is with especially YouTube, it's a very popular medium to get any source of education. And there's lots of valuable information. There's lots of misleading information. So that's the problem with it. That's why you need somebody that's been to the mountain before, right? And can show you the way, and so that you save time and you save energy and you save money.
Yeah.
And if you're really serious about it, then you need to invest into some sort of education that's going to allow you to get to, or allow you to reach the goals that you want to reach. And then but it doesn't end there. You know, I've had plenty of students, especially at MI, that have spent tens of thousands of dollars that didn't practice and didn't do anything.
Wow.
And so there's a flip side of that coin. Teachers can only give you so much information, but ultimately you have to put in the work.
Right.
You have to do it. And if you're not willing to make it a priority, then don't expect to get great results. I don't want to sound like super harsh here, but that's just the reality, you know.
What is the mindset that you have to have? What is that mindset? Like, is it?
The mindset is you have to be willing to sacrifice stuff. Like if you can't point to anything in your life that you've sacrificed for this, well, then that's not a priority. That's the definition of a priority, right? It's like for something to be a priority, that means something else had to be sacrificed for it, or else it's all on equal ground here. It's all equal footing. So if you can't identify certain things in your life that you've had to sacrifice, well, then you don't have any priorities.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to go, you know what? If you want this bad enough and you're willing to put in the work, well, then you have to make it a priority, and that just means just by default things are going to have to take a backseat in your life. And if you're willing to do that, well, then that's awesome. You're good to go. But if you're not willing to do that, then you need to reevaluate
what does that look like in real time? Because I mean, for your wife, that was 10 hours a day. You know, for you, it was an hour a day, 2 hours a day.
Minimum 2. Yeah,
I got it. So and you were doing this since you were young.
Yeah, through junior high, high school, especially when you go to music college. I mean, that's like 6-8 hour days.
Yeah. So you're, I mean, what is practical and actually something, an amount of time that someone is able to accomplish? Like a lot of your students you think through, like
I say if you
30 minutes is hour and a half.
I say hour.
If you can get your hour in.
If you can't get an hour in, then lower your expectation of what you want to get out of this.
Got it.
But if you can get the hour in consistently, right? And that's the whole thing. It's all about consistency. It's not about, I'm going to get an hour in on Monday, but then I got to work on like Tuesday and Wednesday. I don't have time. But on Thursday, I'm going to practice 4 hours. The body and the brain, it doesn't work like that, right? We know that it works for things to really settle physiologically and neurologically in the brain. In the body, it's a process over time. And that's why sleep is so important, because like throughout the day, the process of growth, what is it? It's repetition, rest, and recall, right? So what do? When you practice, you repeat these same motor skills again and again and again. And that's what is that doing? All that's doing is just inputting all this raw data into your brain.
Right.
Well, then what happens when you sleep? Well, when you sleep, that's when your brain actually organizes all that raw information, and it organizes it in such a way that when you want to play it again, the synapses are more prepared to be able to fire it with less ease and less effort. So the next day when you recall it, you actually use that function. And it's like, oh wow, this is a little bit easier. Right?
Yep.
So you're strengthening that signal sending process more and more, and you're refining that. And you go through that that cycle consecutively. Well, then you are a growth machine at that point. But as soon as you stop and you take a little bit of break, okay, well, there's no real refinement. There might be like some incubation happening that's actually refining it a little bit. But when you're not recalling it, that means you're testing the system, right? You're testing what you've been working on.
Right.
And if you're not constantly engaging the system, then it's missing that refinement.
Got it.
And that's why it's so important to be consistent, even if it's like 15 minutes, right? I fall for this all the time, where I'm like, I'm going to practice 3 hours today. Oh, crap. Life came up. I can only get a half hour in. Well, then I'm going to blow off the rest of the 2.5.
Right.
No, that half hour is really important. You can still make pretty good gains with that half hour. And that's what I just try to remind my students of. Don't try to stockpile hours, procrastinate hours too long and feel like you can make up for it on the back end. It just doesn't work that way. It's a quick way to get actually.
Is there a window in your youth when that fires at a really high level, like where you can retain and build very quickly, and then it starts to die off at a certain, like, why is it? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Why can't older people pick up what the younger person can? Is that the younger person just has more time to be able to dedicate to it? Or is there something in the brain to the muscle that like slows down and you can't, you know what I mean? It seems like there's a supernatural ability to grow when you're young.
Right.
In whatever thing, like you can excel. And I can't tell if that's just more time and passion and dedication and focus, or if that's, because even at this age, like when I pick up an instrument, it's just like, I don't know why it feels more difficult. And I don't know why it was so effortless when I was young, and just that repetition was effortless. And it seemed like there's very natural growth. Though the mindset that I have now is, I'm very thankful for, and I feel like I could set my mind to anything and probably get after it and do it if I wanted to, because of all the repetition through life and all the different areas. But is there something neurologically, or is there something going on like in the youth that causes them to pick up a language better, causes, to learn the language of music, or learn the discipline of, again, no bad no bad habits. So, when the brain tells the hand to do this, it does it the first time, every time, forever, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm no Andrew Huberman here, but
Human lab.
But I've read a bunch of different things about that, and nothing seems to be consistent actually, because there's some people that you're just as able to learn something at 50 than you are at 20. And there should be no discrepancy there. And then other people are like, well, no, there's actually a lot of physiological stuff and psychological stuff that really creates like an impediment.
Barriers
Yeah. And I think it's got to be different for everyone. There can't be like this, everyone is on equal footing here. My suspicion is when you're younger, you're less distracted from life.
Yeah.
And it's new. Things are still new. And I think when things are new, it's more exciting. Even though when you get older, it's like, well, I want to learn how to watercolor paint or something. I've never done that in my life. But just because it's new, does that mean I'm going to pick it up as quick as a 20-year-old? I don't know.
Right.
I don't really have a passion for water. So
you don't want to do watercolors?
It might be a bad example. But it's a great question, Josh. And I don't know if anyone has an answer to that.
Right.
Because I've had students start playing drums when they're 60 and they're rocking and they're way better than like the 18-year-olds.
Wow.
Because they're at a point in their life now where like,
they have the mindset.
This is all I've ever wanted to do. I wanted to do this in high school, but I got married early. I had a career, had a family. Now I'm retired.
Yep.
And now I have the money to do it. I have the time, and they're just crushing it.
Right.
So it kind of blows that whole theory of the water that, old dog, new tricks type of thing.
Are there people are there people who have music in their blood and people who just absolutely do not have music in their blood? Like you want the clapping at church or something? Is that real, or like what do you?
You can ask my wife about my singing abilities, and she will tell you that I have no natural ability to sing, and so I do not have the singing gene.
You sing in
at
your
all.
heart. You make a joyful noise to the Lord.
Oh, I do to her every day, and she.
I love
loves
it. I love it.
Yeah.
Any wisdom on this industry here in LA? People try to crack this code all the time. What is it? Like you're 30 years in this industry. Like you can look back and kind of. What is it? How
to crack the code?
Yes. What there are all these musicians trying to figure it out. They cannot seem to figure out how to get in. Like what is it?
Yeah. It's humility. Humility and relationships. That's all it is.
Wow.
That's all it is. Just be humble. Just be humble and
because people don't want to hang around you if you're not. Is that it? Is that it? Really? Personality.
1,000%.
Wow.
I know so many amazing musicians.
I did not think you were going to say that, Jeff. Humility is the key.
Yeah, 100%.
You know so many musicians.
I know so many musicians that are phenomenal. They're just phenomenal at their craft. Phenomenal. And nobody wants to work with them.
Wow.
Why is that? They're phenomenal. They have this godlike ability. They have this just extraordinary talent. It's not worth it.
Wow.
I don't want to go on the road with them. I don't want to do a session with them. They bum me out.
Wow.
Right? It's like, man, the ego is just way too much.
Wow.
And if you can just, check yourself.
Wow.
You just check yourself and realize you are not the best. And accept the fact that you are more than lucky and blessed to be able to have any opportunity to play and express yourself through an instrument within this medium. If that doesn't humble you, then you're not going to get a lot of opportunities to be able to experience that.
Wow.
It's just the reality.
And even more so in Christ, right? I mean, if you know Christ, you can tap into his humility.
He's the source of humility.
Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Though he was God, in the image of God, he took the form of a servant. He looked to the interest of others before he looked to the interest of himself. Let this mindset be in you, the humility of Christ. And
Amen.
it's so powerful, Jeff, because I didn't think you were going to say that. I really didn't. And I don't know. I don't even know what I thought you were going to say, but like, I think if thousands of musicians listened to this, they were thinking it was something else. And lo and behold, it's sitting right there.
It's right there. It's right there. I could give you example after example of guys that have gotten gigs that weren't the best musicians.
Wow.
But people love hanging out with them.
Wow.
People feel good when they spend time with them. They want to be with these people that elevate them, that speak value into their life. It's like, that's talent. Talent's everywhere, right? But if you can't play, okay, that's a bit of it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to get as many opportunities.
Right.
But it's a given, right? Especially if you're in this town, if you're in this industry, you should be able to play your instrument like that. That's understood,
Sure.
right? It's who you are as the person, right?
Wow.
Do you care more about other people's needs than yourself? Are you on time? Are you responsible? Are you honest? Do you talk, behind their back? Do you talk about others to them behind it? Do you gossip, right? Do you have this reputation of not being trustworthy, right? Or do you have this reputation of, serving other people? Do you have this reputation of just recognizing that you are lucky to be in this position, right? It doesn't mean like you have to be, oh, woe is me. You guys are so kind, to allow me to be. I'm not talking about that. It's just a real humility of understanding, your place within this whole crazy spectrum of weirdness. Because it's a weird place.
Right.
It's a really weird industry.
Right.
But humility is that transcends.
Jeff, you're always the guy that I want to like sit next to. Seriously. And you're always so encouraging, and I just appreciate that so much, and you're fun. You're always like there. You beam fun. Like all the many conversations we've had at church, I've walked away from them and I've just felt so good. So I think that's what that's what you do in the business. You just have this like awesome quality of like just fun and encouragement. Love you, man.
Yes.
Dave, I appreciate that.
Yeah. No, Jeff,
it's easy when you're with like-minded brethren. It's just that's the power of the community. That's what we're talking about.
Oh man, that we have
a cyclical thing.
Yeah, we have you at Legacy is such a blessing.
Oh man, it's my blessing. No, it's a blessing.
It is. It's a treasure, Jeff. It's. I'm not just saying that. It's like I do love being around you. Love hanging out with you. Wish we could hang out more, honestly. And it's that's why this is easy. It's like that's why the worship team. So it's just like all that. Is like we've been in the church a long time. We've been around a lot of Christians doing ministry for a long time. But when you find people that love God, love people, and again, have that Christ form of humility around them, where they don't have to say it, but it pours from their life in a very unique, personable, likable way, and is able to have fun and goof off and love Christ and love people. Like we need more of that. And you are the example of that, Jeff. You've done that for us. You're doing that, and it's we can see it, and it's obviously the Lord, but it's a blessing when it does happen. And the fact that you've been able to step outside of it all and kind of look from a helicopter perspective and see that Christ, by his grace, has done that in you. And that's allowed you to forge your way through the industry and have success, man. It's like, it's really, it's awesome, man. It's awesome to see. It's great what the Lord's done.
Well, it just in terms of being a blessing, having the privilege of being able to serve with you guys and the worship team, that's what I said. It's a cyclical thing. It's really easy to be humble amongst the humble, So in fact, it's convicting, and in a really healthy way. And that's why I'm just so thankful for the community, and just thankful that you were obedient and came out here and followed what God was pointing you towards, and amongst all the struggles. And I mean, talk about leaving comfortability. Like, I'm preaching to the choir here, but the fruit that has been able to be produced by your obedience has just been awesome, Josh. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome, of course. Praise God. We love you, Jeff Bowders. You are a master musician. Give me an ounce of what you have. I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm just so thankful. Thanks for the interview. Thanks for the time. Where can people find you online? How can we connect people to you?
Yeah, jeffbowders.com or drumdisciplineacademy.com. Those are my two. And all the social links are there. And so if you want to be inundated with double bass domination.
Yes. Yes, we do. Yes, you do.
Get on board the double bass train.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe and check out the website. And if you want some lessons, if you want to become a master, you can connect with the Jedi himself, Jeff Bowders. Love you, Jeff. Thank you for all you do. Love your wife. Love you guys. Thankful.
Love you, brother.
Excited to see what the Lord has in store.
Thank you, brother.
Let's go get some lunch.
Let's do it. Taco Tuesday.
See ya.